I loved spending my free time reading and learning. People said I was a top-notch student. Some called me a bookworm, and I guess they weren't wrong. The school's library was my favorite place. It was quiet, peaceful, and full of books. On one particularly normal afternoon after classes ended, I decided to head to the library. This was a routine for me. I didn't rely on the school bus since my house was just a few streets away, so I would often hang out at the library for an hour or two. I had just started a gripping new novel. I was lost in its pages, thoroughly engrossed when out of the blue the library door banged open. A man rushed in. The library, as usual, was pretty empty. I'd never seen this stranger before. He didn't look like a teacher or a staff member. He had long, messy hair, a scruffy beard, and an old, worn-out coat. After bursting in, he shot a quick glance my way, and then dashed behind some bookshelves on the left side. Feeling uneasy, I checked the librarian's desk. Empty. Scanning the room, I confirmed I was the only student there. Then the school's intercom blared an announcement about a lockdown. My heart raced. Despite classes being over, many students remained in school for club activities, sports, and more. Soon after, the librarian reappeared from a back room. She quickly informed me of the lockdown and led me to a designated safety room within the library. I quickly briefed her about the unfamiliar man. Judging by her reaction, he might have been the reason for the lockdown. She urgently asked if anyone else was in the library, but only silence greeted us. We were alone. The safety room soon filled up with teachers. They whispered and shared concerned glances. A few approached me asking about the man I saw. We huddled together in that room for what felt like ages. Eventually, I heard that the police had been called. After a tense couple of hours, the doors were opened, but nobody could confirm if the man had been caught. The school had made an announcement that they had checked the whole building and that it was safe now. Still, my mom and dad were kind of scared and thought maybe I should stay home for a bit. But the next day, everything seemed okay. My friends were in class and we learned like always. And yeah, I even went back to the library. But then, the day after, things felt weird. Like always, I walked to school. I liked walking, it wasn't too far. I used a different entrance, the one on the northeast side of the school. Not many kids used this door because it wasn't the main one, but I liked it. It was close to my home and it was peaceful because not many students came in from there. I was humming a tune as I walked inside and headed to where my locker was. The hall was quiet with just me, but then I froze. That man, the same one with the messy hair, the beard, and that old coat, I saw him again, and this time he was far from the library, closer to this side entrance. He stepped out from what looked like a cupboard or storage room. My heart raced. Without wasting a moment, I dashed into a nearby unused classroom. It was dark inside, but I hid under a desk, hoping he wouldn't see or hear me. My heart thudded in my ears. I tried to breathe quietly. I then heard footsteps. They grew louder and louder. They were getting closer to my hiding spot. I squeezed my eyes shut, hoping he hadn't seen where I went. It felt like hours, but then I heard the distant sound of the school's main door opening and closing. I hoped it meant he had left. I stayed under the desk for a little longer. Then, taking a deep breath, I dashed out and finally saw another student in the next hallway. I rushed to my first class, and there was my teacher, Mrs. Caldwell. I quickly told her everything. The school bells rang, signaling another lockdown, and soon enough the familiar sound of sirens echoed. Though they searched, they didn't find him. But the good thing, I never saw him at school again. When I was in high school, I tried my best to get good grades. I usually got B's and sometimes C's. I was okay with that because I tried hard. I really liked gym and some other classes that were not too hard, but I didn't like science and math at all. In my junior year, there was one day when I went to my science class and saw that our usual teacher wasn't there. Instead, there was a substitute teacher. This was the last class of the day, and my best buddy Jake was with me in that class. That made the class fun, but to be honest, I didn't like the science stuff. Seeing the substitute teacher made us happy because most of the time when there's a substitute teacher, the class is easy. He told us that he would play a science video for us. We had seen parts of this video before, and it was really not interesting. When he tried to mark who was in class and who wasn't, he had a problem. He couldn't get the computer to work. After trying for some time, he said he wouldn't mark attendance because he couldn't see the list of students. This was a time when we didn't have smart boards, so we watched the video on a big TV that was on wheels. When everything was ready, he turned off the room lights and started the video. Then he said he was thirsty and would go get some water. He'd be back soon. Jake and I looked at each other and thought, this is our chance. Our classroom had 2 doors. We were sitting at the back near one of the doors. When the substitute teacher went out, Jake and I quickly left through that door. We sneaked to a part of the school where we hoped no one would see us. We found this small, hidden place near where they teach art. It was like a long, thin room with lots of closets. People rarely went there. We went inside and sat down. In that hidden spot, we took out our phones and started playing games. We also had some snacks in our bags, so we ate those. For us, this was much better than sitting in class and watching a video that was not fun. Jake and I were joking and playing games on our phones. I was munching on some chips when a sound from the school's speaker system made me stop. They said the school was on lockdown. Jake and I stared at each other, eyes wide. "What should we do?" Jake whispered. "Stay here, I guess," I whispered back. We thought the best idea would be to hide in one of the closets filled with random things. It was a tight fit, but we both managed to get inside. As time passed, we kept guessing why the school was on lockdown. "Maybe someone's dog got in," Jake joked, trying to lighten the mood. But deep down, we hoped no one would check this hallway. Then, the door to our hiding spot opened. Our hearts pounded so loud, I was sure anyone could hear them. Even though our closet door was slightly open, we tried not to make a sound. We saw a man walking down the hallway. He wasn't someone we knew. He looked young and wore regular clothes. The scary part was when he opened the closet right next to ours. We could hear him breathing heavily. Jake whispered to me, "We need to leave. Now." We both counted to 3, took a deep breath, and ran as fast as we could towards the exit. We were almost at the door when someone yelled at us. Without looking back, we kept running until we reached our classroom. But it was locked. We knocked hard and fast until the teacher opened the door and pulled us inside. After a while, the lockdown was lifted and we found out the man was caught. Sitting in that classroom, Jake and I realized how bad our decision to sneak out was. It was a day we'd never forget. I was filling in as a temp teacher. It was my first time at this new high school. They told me I'd be taking over an English class for the day, giving out some reading assignments, and in one session showing a film. All in all, it seemed like a chill day. I got to the school early, and the corridors were buzzing with students. I was trying to find my assigned room in this big, old-looking school. On the way, I felt the need to use the restroom. Thinking I had a few minutes to spare, I went. I was in and out in no time. But when I left the restroom, the buzz in the hallways was gone. It was weirdly quiet. Checking my watch, I saw that it wasn't time for class yet. So where did everyone go? I saw maybe 2 or 3 students far off, but they vanished from my view quickly. As I was thinking about this, a voice blared from the school's speakers. They announced a lockdown and told everyone to go to their first class right away. I didn't waste a second. I hurried to my assigned classroom, trying to remember the way in the big unfamiliar building. The hallways were eerily quiet, and I couldn't spot a single soul. Finally, I found my classroom. The door was shut, but it wasn't locked. I went in and saw that the lights were off. That's what they do during lockdowns. But as I let the hallway light seep in, I noticed something odd. There were no students in the room. So I thought that maybe the students were just hiding somewhere at the back. I called out, "Hello, anyone here?" But all I heard was silence. Using my phone's light, I slowly looked around. I hoped to find some students maybe huddled together or hiding, but there was no one. The room was empty, at least that's what I first thought. But then, my light caught something odd in a corner. Behind one of the desks, there was a grown-up man all bent over and hiding. My heart raced, and I tried to act cool, like I hadn't seen him. I slowly moved towards the classroom's door, hoping to just slip out quietly. But as I neared the exit, I heard shuffling sounds behind me. It sounded like the man was quickly coming my way. Panicking, I rushed out and managed to close the door right as I heard him almost reach it. He didn't chase me out. I didn't wait to see what he'd do next. I sprinted down the hall. After what felt like forever, I saw a cop. At first, they were suspicious of me since they didn't recognize me. But once they understood I was just filling in for the day, I explained everything. The police later found the guy, not far from the classroom. He had a knife with him. They figured he was there for the regular teacher of that class. That thought gave me shivers. I was so thankful I got out when I did. This is a pretty wild story from when I was in high school. During my last year, a new guy, let's call him John, joined our class. John looked like any regular student. He didn't stand out much and was a bit on the quieter side. As days went by, John and I started to chat here and there, and we became kind of friendly. You see, I was the kind of person who got along with nearly everyone. Our school was big, but somehow I had friends from all corners. John and I shared 2 classes together. In those classes, we'd often discuss simple stuff like our favorite teams, latest games, or just general school topics. To be honest, outside of those chats, I didn't know much about John. And about me? Well, I was your typical student, more into games and chatting about the latest game scores than books, but I made sure to finish all my assignments. One sunny day, I walked into our shared class and started a usual chat about the latest soccer match with John. We had fixed seats in that class because our teacher liked order, and I was lucky to have John as my seatmate. We'd spend the starting minutes of each class chatting about all sorts of stuff. Later, in my second-last class, where John was supposed to be but we didn't sit together, I noticed he was missing. It was odd because he rarely missed classes. I was just thinking about where he might be when suddenly the school alarms blared. My heart raced as our teacher quickly said it was a lockdown. She directed all of us to gather at the back, away from the windows. She swiftly switched off the lights, making the room go dark, and with a serious look on her face, locked the door securely. So we stayed like that, all huddled together in that dark room for what felt like forever, but was really just about an hour. Then finally someone came over the speaker saying it was safe and we could get back to our lessons. I mean, you can imagine the buzz all around school. Everyone was super curious, asking each other why we had that unexpected lockdown. I won't pretend. My heart was pounding so hard during that whole time in the corner of the classroom. I kept thinking, are we okay? Is something bad happening outside? But it was only the next morning when I got the full story. And man, it was wild. So, remember John? Turns out John wasn't even his real name, and he wasn't our age either. He was a 26-year-old guy who was playing pretend at our school. He had a record with some bad stuff on it, like stealing stuff and getting involved with drugs, and for some weird reason, he decided to act like he was a high school student in our school. I really couldn't believe it. Like, how did he even manage to get in and attend classes? It's so weird to think about how I used to chat about soccer with him, not having any clue about his real identity. Apparently, someone from the school staff got suspicious and did some digging, and bam, they found out the truth. And that was why they put the whole school on lockdown, because of John. Now, whenever I tell this story, people's jaws drop. It's just one of those wild school stories that sounds made up but isn't.